You want fair? Don't ask life. Life doesn't care about fair. You have an accident, a stroke, spinal cord or brain injury. A child gets cancer. It's never fair. But you know what else isn't fair? The way we're gonna fight it. Now the gloves are off. The Shirley Ryan Ability Lab. The #1 ranked rehabilitation hospital for 30 years in a row. Doctors, scientists, therapists, nurses. Unified, bona fide, fortified. With the latest weapons of science like biomedical engineering, robotics, avatars. The science to get your life back. Nobody thinks something like this will happen to them. But then nobody is going to help you whip it like we will. Let me hear you. Hoorah!
Shirley Ryan Ability Lab. Advancing human ability in Chicago and the world.
Let me tell you another story from when I was a security guard at the mall, because the length of time that I did that job produced dozens of jobs. Many a life lesson was learned on the force at the Del Monte Shopping Center in Monterey, California back in 2006. So I had been on the force, as we like to call it, for I want to say about 2 weeks. And it's finally my time to start working the graveyard shift. And when you work the graveyard shift, you have to understand something, that after a couple of nights, you start kind of hallucinating a little bit because your body hasn't fully acclimated to being awake from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. So you kind of get a little kooky, you kind of get a little out there. And I remember one night, I was working with a guy, his name was Hamdan Hadim. He was a man from Indonesia. He was a Muslim man, but we all called him Hammy, which probably is a little racist if you think about it now, and also if you think about the religion that he practiced, but we all called him Hammy. Hammy was very used to working the night shift, and he would often try to get me to engage in the practice of Islam. He would often try to get me to engage, prayer with him, eat with him, all this other kind of stuff. He's a very nice guy, very warm guy. And we had many long conversations about what it meant to be a good person. Because when you're working a graveyard shift like that, and you're walking around a mall or driving around a mall in the security truck or whatever, riding bikes around the mall, there's only so much you can do between 11 p.m. and 8 a.m. I mean, you can only so many times you can check the door at Macy's or check the fountain or check the fruit stand outside of Whole Foods. After a period of time, you just end up kind of walking around almost like you're enjoying a nice stroll through the park. So I'm working with Hammy. And one night in particular, we get a call from somebody who's leaving a store later. And she calls and she's very, very, very concerned. And she's saying, can I have a security walk back to my car? We say, why? She says that there's a suspicious person who is in the fountain, physically in the fountain outside of my store. And I don't feel comfortable around this person. I thought, how weird is that? There's a person in the fountain, not around the fountain, but in the fountain. So Hammy and I, code 3, we book it over there. We're on the radio. We're getting in touch with the captain, who always wanted to be kept abreast of what was going on in case he needed to call the police, whether or not he was working or not. So we saw, there's someone in the fountain. There's someone in the fountain. We're hoofing it over there. We're running as fast as we can. And when we get there, it's a woman. It's just a woman, kind of a small, dainty woman, kind of a hippie-looking woman, if I could say that. Had on kind of shawls and things like that. She's holding up her dress and very gently reaching into the fountain and pulling out change because she's poor and she's homeless and she needs money. So we're looking at this woman, and I remember looking at Hammy, and Hammy looks at me, and then we look at the woman, and then she looks at us, and she gets this huge smile on her face. You know, the kind of smile like when you've been caught doing something that you're not supposed to be doing. Huge smile on her face, and she says, hi, and we go, hi, and she says, I just need to do my laundry. She says, I just need to get enough change to do my laundry. Now, if you come from where I come from a very superstitious family, taking someone's wishes out of a fountain is pretty bad. It's pretty much the worst thing that you can possibly do is to steal somebody's wishes from a fountain to do your laundry. But me, at the time, I remember thinking to myself, oh, it makes perfect sense to me that someone who's homeless would need change to go to the local laundromat and wash their clothes. So, Hammy decides that he's going to go over to I think it was a candle store or something like that, and he was going to escort this young lady to her car, and I was going to sit with this homeless woman, and I was going to chat with her about why she can't be in the fountain. So, I get to talking to this homeless woman about her life and all this, everything that was going on in her life at the time. Now, it turns out she was a transplant from Idaho. She had been living in Big Sur, California. She had had a boyfriend, total deadbeat boyfriend, who beat her, who was an alcoholic and who was addicted to drugs, and that she had spent the last of her money fixing up her van to get it to run again so that she could go back to Idaho. And the reason that she was taking change out of the fountain, or so she told me, was so that she could do her laundry and then finally drive on and be on her way. And I, at 18, ate this story up. I was thinking, this is obviously the God's honest truth, right? And, kind of naive at that age. And as we're sitting there and as we're talking, all of a sudden, Captain pulls up in his car. Now, the captain was a guy, his name was Chris, and at the time he was 23 years old. But to me, he might as well have been like Captain Barnes from Platoon, because he had been doing this security job for years of his life, and everybody looked up to him, and he was supposedly this big tough guy, but he was really kind of just a pathological liar, as I would find out later. So he pulls up out of nowhere in his BMW, does a U-turn into the mall, jumps out of his car. He's dressed in plain clothes, not dressed in a security uniform, because he's heard us talking about this woman in the fountain on the radio. And he runs up to the fountain and he goes, "What are you doing sitting down?" He's instantly mad at me. "What are you doing sitting down with this individual?" And I go, "I don't know." And he says, "This woman has just been caught stealing and you're an accessory to it." And I went, "Oh no!" He was now accusing me of being an accessory to a crime. And he said that he had already called the police, and this poor homeless woman, in my mind, was being accosted by my buddy Chris, or my boss Chris. And so a period of time goes by. I remember Chris kind of saying some mean words to this homeless woman. She keeps trying to leave, by the way. She keeps trying to take off. And Chris was saying, no, you have to wait for the police to get here. And every time she would try to inch away from us, Chris would say, "You have to wait for the police to get here." And for whatever reason, she was hooked in by this. She decided that she simply could not leave. So eventually the police show up, and she gets popped for stealing quarters out of the fountain, again, which seemed like this little small innocuous thing, right? But then the police say, take us to your van. We want to see your van. We want to see where you're living." And all of a sudden she gets really sketchy about it. She gets really weird about it. As it turns out, to make a very long story short, she had actually been on a bit of a crime spree down in Big Sur, California. She had been going to houses that had been abandoned, or not abandoned, but who had been left vacant. And she was going into those homes and going through them and taking whatever she could. So this might have been someone's vacation home, or maybe it was their hunting cabin, or whatever it was. Or maybe the people were gone for the weekend. She would go into their homes and she would take things, jewelry, pills, whatever she could find. So she had been on a bit of a crime spree, and they caught this woman, and she ended up going to jail. Now, me, at the time, I remember thinking to myself, as they open up the back of this woman's van, and it's filled with other people's stuff, I remember thinking that I had been duped, and rightfully so. I had been totally tricked by this woman who gave me a sob story about her life, when it turns out she was actually kind of sort of a criminal mastermind. She had learned how to manipulate the emotionality of the circumstance, and I took a lot from that in my life, that oftentimes people will manipulate something using emotion. They will attempt to manipulate you using a story, to try to use emotion to try to convince you of a different reality, if you will. So when I read today that the ACLU asked a judge to invalidate Compassion Seattle, the proposed homelessness initiative, I was thinking to myself, yes, look at the amount of people out there that have been manipulated around the homelessness issue because it is such an emotionally charged issue. Not because of the practicality of it, not because of the actual policy aspect of it, but because it is so emotionally charged. So they announced today that it had filed a lawsuit against a proposed city charter amendment seeking to overhaul Seattle's homelessness response. The proposed initiative is being put forth by a group known as Compassion Seattle, staffed by SoDo Business Improvement Area Executive Aaron Goodman, former City Council member President Tim Burgess, and former King County Executive Ron Sims, among others. It would mandate an additional 2,000 shelter beds or permanent housing units within 1 year. And also, by the way, waiving building permit fees, which is a great idea, and treating housing permit applications as first in line for expedited treatment and refunding to the payee the city's portion of the sales tax for these facilities. But the thing that everybody got hung up on was that it places a requirement on the city to ensure that parks, playgrounds, sports fields, public spaces, and sidewalks and streets remain open and clear of encampments. That is the emotional aspect that everybody has gotten hung up on. And I believe fundamentally that people are allowing themselves to be manipulated based on the emotional aspect of it. We have gone over many times what happens in these camps. Many, many, many times. Violence, drug addiction, rape. These places are hellholes. These places are awful places for human beings to be. And yet, you have a group out there who are saying that these people should continue to live in those circumstances. The lawsuit filed in King County Superior Court on Wednesday claims that Compassion Seattle's charter amendment goes beyond the scope of what's permitted in voter initiatives in Washington. Legalese basically saying that they have no legal authority to do so. CA29 ignores well-established limits to local initiative process. That's what the ACLU of Washington staff attorney Brianne Schulster said in a news release. State law provides multiple avenues for constituents to influence homelessness policies and practices, but the initiative process at the city level is not one of them. CA29 violates both our state's local initiative laws and the proper function of our democratic systems. This is an interesting argument to try to say that it is not legal for you to be able to do this. It is not permissible for you to be able to do this. In the bureaucratic web that we have, in the nightmarish hellscape of intersecting laws and municipalities and codes and permitting and blah, 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 blah. Compassion Seattle comes along and they say, well, let's actually try to fix this problem. Let's try to get the ball rolling in some direction while also ensuring that parks are clear for people. Now, we've talked about this so many times. Parks is what makes a community. I think fundamentally, communal spaces is what makes a community. When you do not have communal spaces, people become more isolated in their homes. They become more resistant to go outside and spend time with their neighbors. They feel more isolated. This all leads to a kind of societal sickness or a kind of societal erosion where people aren't actually going to parks anymore and spending time with people or even spending time with their neighbors, right? A recent poll published by the Northwest Progressive Institute found that 61% of the 617 Seattle voters surveyed supported the charter amendment. Another 23% were opposed, while 16% remained unsure. How could you possibly be unsure about clearing these spaces? How could you possibly be unsure about it? I see people out there who, I'm not sure if it's through a lack of understanding or a lack of an ability to contextualize. I see people out there who consider themselves to be deeply progressive, or they consider themselves to be helping the issue in one way or another, when in reality they're actually hampering the issue. They're actually making it worse. You make this system worse when you engage in this kind of legalese. You make the whole process worse when you try to shoot something down like Compassion Seattle. The homelessness problem in the city of is awful. It's awful because of the bureaucratic web that has been imposed on the city. The nightmarish hellscape, as I said previous, of laws and regulations and what you can do and what you cannot do, all designed to make the process fundamentally impossible to fix. It is a Gordian knot. It is a Gordian knot that cannot be untangled. And then when you have Compassion Seattle coming along and saying, hey, wait a minute, let's try to undo a couple of strands of this, you have a bunch of naysayers that say, no, 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 no. You most certainly will not. I'll give you another example. City Hall Park is going to close, right, for 2 to 3 months. After weeks of outreach efforts, a 72-hour clearance of a homeless encampment in downtown Seattle's City Hall Park is now in progress. Over the last several weeks, workers with the Just Care program have conducted assessments, facilitated engagement, and created individualized plans for 52 unhoused individuals in the encampment. That outreach work wrapped up late last week. Now the expectation is that nearly all individuals will voluntarily accept offers of shelter, according to King County officials. And now the park will be closed for 2 to 3 months. A park that should otherwise be open for everybody. A park that should otherwise be available to everybody out there is going to do what now? Well, they have to close it and they got to clean it up and then it's going to be closed. So you look at what these policies get people when people stand in the way of progress. You know, that's one of the issues that I see in the city of, is that you have people standing in the way of actually doing something about the problem. Have you seen any of the, and I don't know if anybody, this is probably a stupid question, I don't know if anybody out there that has not seen an encampment and they look at that thing and they go, how could those people possibly live that way? How could the city or the county or whatever, how could they possibly allow those people to live that way? How could you possibly allow that encampment to flourish? I think no matter what you do, you are going to have people like this that try to hamper the progress of the city. I think that you're going to have, like, the ACLU or other organizations try to come down and try to say, no, you cannot clean up this city. It's just going to happen. And yeah, it's frustrating. It's frustrating, but I wonder if these people could actually take into consideration the effect that this has on a community. The effect that this actually has on a society, because they're so fixated and so focused on this small percentage of people out there that I think that they're losing sight of what's actually going on to the city of, right? I think they're actually losing sight of what happens to a city when you allow this kind of thing to continue. And it would be very easy for me to do outrage radio around it. It'd be very easy for me to say, these people have no idea. And I'd come on and I'd yell and I'd scream about it. I'm sure it'd be good outrage radio. But would it be productive and would it be beneficial? I don't think so. I think that what would be beneficial is that we continue to support Compassion Seattle, we continue to support that plan, and we continue to support the people who are pursuing that plan. All right, well, we'll take a really quick break. When we get back, we have a whole lot more Cairo Nights coming down the pipe for you right after this. I knew that there was going to be a certain amount of pushback against the vaccine mandates. I knew that they were just too heavy-handed. It's just kind of human nature to want to resist this level of authoritarian control over your own body. Now, you could be saying, Jack Stein, that these are people who are being irresponsible and these are people who are putting other people's lives at risk. And I agree with you on that. I think that everybody should get the vaccine. But my caveat is this. Everybody should get the vaccine voluntarily. And when you try to force people to do something like this, people are going to push back against it. About 300 employees and supporters of Peace Health St. Joseph Medical Center in Bellingham, Washington, held a rally against the statewide vaccine mandate for healthcare workers and state employees, which requires them to receive the COVID-19 vaccine or possibly lose their job. Nancy Hill said it's more of a rally to support our constitutional rights. She was on the Dory Monson show this morning. Here's what that sounded like on the Dory Monson show.
More of a rally to support our constitutional rights and our medical freedom of choice, which is so incredibly important right now because they are being threatened They are trying to be stripped away. And if we don't take a stand for our constitutional rights, then we all stand to lose all of them. This is the time that we need to stand up and say, no, enough is enough. This is not acceptable. They will uphold our constitutional rights. What the government is trying to do is they are trying to strip away our rights. It is unconstitutional. It is unethical. It is illegal. And we are challenging that. We are absolutely going to challenge that, and we will take it as far as we need to go because they are trying to bully us. They are trying to threaten our jobs. I may stand to lose my job. I'm a mother of 5. I take care of my parents that live with me. I'm a single mom, and I am standing here knowing that I am putting myself at risk. But if it means that one person gets their rights upheld, then it's worth it for me because that is my job as a nurse. That is why I signed up to be a nurse.
I support these people. I really do. Now, again, do I think that they are making a mistake by not getting vaccinated? 100%. But it is their right to make that mistake. It is their right. And you'll notice something, that the narrative has shifted, and it shifted very subtly. Inslee came out a couple days ago, and he said, you don't have the right to get other people sick. You don't have a right to get kids sick, basically is the argument. The argument was initially, wear a mask. You remember this? Let's go all the way back to the beginning of this whole COVID thing. The argument initially was wear the mask, and some people pushed back against that, and then eventually everybody was pretty much wearing the mask. It was pretty mainstream for a period of time. And then the argument was go out and get vaccinated. Little bit of pushback against it, but everybody who wanted to wear a mask initially was wearing a mask. Everybody who wanted to get the vaccine initially went and got the vaccine. Right now, I think it's something like 99% of pharmacies in the United States, you can walk in and get a COVID-19 vaccine. It is so accessible, it's unreal. So the people who are left, think about it like this. The people who are left are people who have said, no, thank you. Uber, just as an example, we've heard all this stuff about, well, there are some people who can't drive to the farm. There's some people who can't drive to the vaccination center. Uber has a program that you can get driven to the vaccine center for free on the fun little Uber app. So you tell me how much of a limit there is for people out there who don't want to get vaccinated, who can't, quote unquote, can't find transportation to get vaccinated. This has very little to do with public health at this point in time, particularly if you look at the numbers of people who have already been vaccinated. Something like 160 million Americans have been vaccinated. That's a tremendous percentage. It's well over 50%. State of Washington is even better than that. This has nothing to do with public safety at this point in time. I hear people talk about breakthrough cases on a regular basis. I hear people talk about hospitals filling up with people. The majority of people who are going to the hospital with COVID-19, according to the CDC, are the unvaccinated. So think about it like this. If your fun little lottery system didn't work, and the desire to get it, the innate desire within a human being didn't do it, what are you missing? Aside from just doing a mandate, what are you missing to actually convince people to go and get it? You've had all the arguments that you can possibly give. You've had all the doctors on that you could possibly have on. What is left for you to do outside of a mandate? Well, what if you actually talk to these people? Instead of the mandate, think about it like this. What if you actually just talked to these people and understood that as Americans, they have the right to say no? Do you want to take that away from people? This is something that really gets under my skin. Do you want to take away your fellow citizens' ability to say no? Do you want them to participate in a non-consensual action? Is that what you want? It's really disturbing to me the more that I see how many people deep inside of them, as we talked about yesterday on the show, but so many people just deep inside of them have this authoritarian urge or this authoritarian itch or this totalitarian urge that they might not recognize because they think that they're doing it for the greater good. They think that they're doing it because they are on the right side of history. I am unwilling to compromise somebody else's consent for my own well-being. That's ridiculous. Do you know how absolutely ridiculous that is of a standard? And yet, I see it every single night on my text line, 98973 State Roofing text line. Force them, make them, blah, 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 blah. This is awful. This is awful because it proves to me how inept people are at making or articulating an effective argument for these people. Because, again, I have Dr. Z on, and Dr. Z makes great arguments. We get lots of emails for Dr. Z. He's going to be back on tomorrow, so we can talk about that doctor from Indiana talking about asymptomatic spread and all that other kind of stuff. But that is the kind of thing that works. And I wish that I could talk to Inslee just one-on-one about this, so I could explain to him, your messaging is bad. Mandates are bad. The arguments are bad. Take it down 100 notches, dog. You have to talk to these people individually, and when they say no, you leave it at that. You remember that on the playground? You remember that? How we were taught how if you went up to a group of people and you wanted to play Foursquare with them and they said no thank you, you weren't supposed to go cry to the yard duty and say, this child has to play with you. Remember that? Remember that rule where if somebody said, no, I don't want to play with you, then that was the end of that? Now, the thing that people always throw out to me is they go, Jack Stein, this is a deadly contagious disease and blah, 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 blah. Not if you have the vaccine. If you have been vaccinated, why are you so concerned about it? I'm not concerned about it. And that's not baseless. It comes from the data from the CDC. So right now what you're asking me to do is to violate somebody else's consent and go basically against the data presented to us from the CDC. Because why? Because it makes Jay Inslee more comfortable? Because of the presuppositions that he has about somebody else's health? Is that the argument that somebody wants to make to me? By the way, if you want to come on the show and make that argument to me, open door, by all means. 973nights@gmail.com. Send me that email. We'll get you on the show. You can debate that point if you want to. But I'm telling you right now, those fine people who are protesting this, those are your fellow Americans. And if you are vaccinated, you are safe. You should not be concerned about this whatsoever. And this continuous hysteria that's around COVID, it's got to go away. It's got to go away. Otherwise, people are just going to start to crack more and more and more. We'll take a really quick break. We'll be right back after this with Sugar Shane Peterson and some good news.
London, Los Angeles, St. Louis, Detroit. People come from all over to visit Chicago. But not everyone comes for the pizza or the Willis Tower. Some come to get their lives back. They come to the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab, the #1 rehabilitation hospital in the world for 30 years straight. Patients of all ages come from 70 countries. They come to recover from a stroke, a spinal cord or brain injury. They come for the best clinical care and pioneering science. They come because no distance is too far when you're trying to get your life back. And the best recovery place on the planet is right in Chicago. Some call it the Second City. But for people who've been dealt a tough blow, it's the city of second chances. Shirley Ryan Ability Lab. Destination ability.
Shirley Ryan Ability Lab, advancing human ability in Chicago and the world.
Peterson, you ever watch Jeopardy? Are you a big Jeopardy guy, Shane Peterson?
I've watched a handful of episodes. It was never on usually the times that, I was able to watch the TV, but, I'm a little bit more of a Family Feud guy myself.
I'm a little bit more country. Shane's a little bit more rock and roll. Well, after weeks of guest hosts on Jeopardy that included celebrities from TV, sports, and journalism, the daily syndicated quiz show chose its executive producer, Mike Richards, as the successor to the beloved host Alex Trebek. I mean, it's kind of underwhelming, right? Like, I'm glad that Jeopardy is continuing going on, but I don't necessarily know. They had to get somebody with like a little bit of name brand recognition, right?
Yeah, wait, what's this guy's name?
His name is Mike Richards, and he was one of the executive producers of the show. And then this article goes on to say, after some fan backlash to a selection process that recently turned messy, producer Sony split the pie by naming another guest host, actor Mayman Balak, as MC for Jeopardy. Now, this is somebody that I've never heard of either, but this is like, so now they're going to split it into two different shows. I guess one young, one old. And the idea behind this is like, why couldn't you guys just get something that everybody liked? Why couldn't you? Oh, wait, Malin Ballack is a lady. I thought, whoops.
Yikes. Did you really just make that mistake? Yeah, I'm looking at a picture of her right now.
Yeah, whoops. I'm okay with making that mistake. But the thing is like, why not get LeVar Burton? Why not get somebody who's got some charisma? Why not get somebody who's a little bit more of a name brand household name, Shane, than two random people?
Okay, I have an idea who I think should be the actual next host of Jeopardy.
I'm thinking the same thing, Shane Peterson.
Well,
I'm just waiting for you to say it. Come on, bud.
I don't think you and I are going.
Nope, we're on the same page, Shane. I know who you're going to say.
I had a different answer, and now we're on the same page.
Come on, bud.
I think you would be great as the host of Jeopardy. I think it would be really great to see you up there with your ball cap on and your half rolled up dress sleeve shirt. And I think it would also be great to have Boo Bear run the cards out to you. I think that would be adorable, be a great addition to the show. I think that it would be an excellent time, and I think that nobody else should ever come and guest host, but instead of guest host, they should just sit in a chair off in the corner, and they just go, wow, Jack, great job.
Wait, so Shane, but who were you going to, because we can be honest here. Like, I came up with the idea, and then you realized that it was a good idea, and so you decided to copy me. But who were you going to say originally?
I know for a fact is going to make a lot of Seattleites happy. I think that we should get Marshawn Lynch to be the host of Jeopardy.
Shane.
Don't you dare tell me that that's a bad idea. Have you ever seen how hilarious that guy is? He is an absolute ball of joy and energy and fun, and he is hilarious. He would be absolutely great. Oh, don't start with this.
No, Shane, I just thought that, we were all like, friends on this show. I didn't actually know that we were actually backstabbing, betraying, duplicitous.
I'm sorry, Jack. I'm just trying to appeal to the audience. I'm sorry that the audience got between yours and yours and my friendship.
Shane,
I'm sorry.
You're supposed to say, Jack, I was always gonna pick you, and then I was gonna say, no, don't say that. And then you say, yeah, no, Jack, you'd be the greatest host of all time of Jeopardy. And then I say, you think so? And then you say, yeah. And, that would have been much better for my ego, but now I guess, Shane, we're just going to have to, totally cancel Cairo Nights, and I'm going to just end my radio career. And
does this mean I'm out of a job?
No, I'm sure they'll find a job for you, but I just won't come back anymore because apparently no one wants me to be the host of Jeopardy. Have you heard, by the way, Shane, how contentious that it's been for this slot?
How contentious? What do you mean?
It has, for this position, it has been contentious because people have been, if you've been on the internet, people have been having literal verbal back and forths around this is the way that it should be done. If they pick this host, I'll never watch it again, blah, 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 blah. There has been huge backlash against this. If they had gone with LeVar Burton, no one could complain about that. He is beloved by all. If they had gone with, I don't know, anybody.
Aaron Rodgers, maybe?
Alan Thicke. Remember Alan Thicke? Alan Thicke would have been great for that position.
The blurred lines guy.
No, that's his dad.
Oh, wait, what? Really?
Alan Thicke is Alan Thicke. Oh, he died. Whoops. Okay, well, that one's not going to work either. Alan Thicke is Robin Thicke's dad. And I just now learned that Alan Thicke has passed away. Which,
rest in peace.
Rest in peace. He'll be missed. And I can't believe I didn't know that Alan Thicke had passed away. Okay, well, we got to get another Canadian.
I say Wayne Gretzky.
Somebody, not Gretzky. It's got to be someone with a little bit more. It's got to be someone like a John Ritter type. But John Ritter's dead as well. It's got to be someone along those lines. Someone who has some kind of ability to, get it. All right, Shane, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll take a really quick break. When we get back, Billy Sunshine will be on the line, and we're actually going to be talking about Danny Westneat's new article in Seattle Times talking about Trump's stolen election racket is working extremely well, even here in Washington State. Stick around for all the details with Mr. Billy Sunshine. We'll take a really quick break. We'll be right back after this.